A red lotus-shaped scar appeared on my niece Lily's forehead. My sister-in-law, Sarah, was overjoyed, jumping for joy and insisting, "It's a sign of a reincarnated Bodhisattva, a destiny of wealth and prosperity." But the longer I looked, the more it resembled a melanoma. So I secretly took Lily to the hospital for an examination. After the diagnosis, Lily tearfully begged me to pay for her surgery. Because of this, Sarah hated me to the bone, brainwashing Lily every single day. Lily would say, "If it weren't for your malicious interference, I would have been a billionaire by now. I wouldn't have to study so hard like this." Lily was furious, completely enraged. While I was bungee jumping, she secretly unhooked my safety harness. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the exact day Sarah proposed setting up an altar at home. "Tomorrow, we'll set up an altar right here in the house, then we can start collecting incense money." Sarah's voice, brimming with excitement, grated on my ears. In a daze, I realized I had come back to life. Looking at the familiar yet strangely distant surroundings, I trembled with emotion. This time, I would never meddle in others' affairs again. My mother, too, clapped excitedly. "My good daughter-in-law, you're absolutely right. Tomorrow, we'll clear out a room and set up a proper altar. The bigger the altar for accumulating merit, the more money it'll hold." Sarah's face was beaming with excitement, her tiny, pea-like eyes now mere slits, a sight that made me nauseous. They were absolutely convinced that the altar would help the Bodhisattva collect incense money. The two of them were ecstatic, as if they'd gone mad. Upstairs, Lily, a young girl, watched them in fear, then turned to me with pleading eyes. In my previous life, I had loved her dearly. From the moment she was born, I took care of all her diapers and formula. When she grew a little older, I bought all her toys. Just the Barbie dolls alone numbered over 100, the most expensive one costing me 500 yuan. My salary wasn't high. Normally, I'd even hesitate to buy new clothes for myself, but for her, I always indulged every request. I even spent tens of thousands on her surgery without batting an eye. And what was the result? She said she was about to take her high school entrance exams, felt immense pressure, and wanted to go bungee jumping with me to relieve stress. I was afraid of heights, so I didn't want to go, but she cried, telling me all her friends had parents who went with them to ease the pressure, while one of her parents was always away on business and the other was pregnant. Seeing her cry so heartbrokenly, I couldn't bear it and agreed. The outcome? As we held hands and jumped, she secretly unhooked my safety harness. I plummeted straight down from a terrifying height. In that moment, I saw Lily still securely seated in her harness, looking at me with a cold expression. I clearly saw her mouth forming the words, "You idiot, go die." It was then that I understood everything. A fire raged in my chest. A boom echoed in my ears as I hit the water. Intense pain swept through my entire body. I spat out a mouthful of blood and sank beneath the surface, but I wouldn't give up. For my family, for my niece, I had sacrificed too much, only to meet such an end. I hated it so much. Thankfully, fate had mercy on me, granting me a chance to live again. In this life, I would not get entangled in this swamp again. Let's see what fate awaits the white-eyed wolves in this family. "Honey, what do you think? How can we arrange the altar better? If we make money, it'll also ease your brother's burden." My mother's voice echoed, extinguishing the flame of hatred in my heart. She was extremely patriarchal, favoring sons over daughters, and had wanted to control me since I was small, forbidding me from talking to boys. Initially, I thought she was worried it would affect my studies, but then, after I got into a pretty good high school, she forced me to drop out and start working. It was then I understood she had no good intentions at all. Later, I even had boyfriends, but my mother would either demand an exorbitant dowry or cause a scene at the boyfriend's house, even reporting them to the police and falsely accusing them of human trafficking. After several such incidents, my reputation was ruined. This was a small town, and gossip spread like wildfire. As a result, I couldn't find a partner anymore. It wasn't that I wasn't good, but people were afraid of my mother. And so, I became an old maid at home, serving as a blood bank for the entire family. Living again, I wouldn't be as foolish as before. Thinking this, I smiled and said, "Mom, you've eaten more salt than I have rice. And Sarah is a woman of strong opinions. Who am I to try and teach a master?" Hearing me say this, Sarah's face lit up with delight. She waved her hand and said, "Oh, those things aren't for me." "What's there to understand, Mom? The two of us can handle it." Lily, with tearful eyes, ran over and tugged at my sleeve again, Before, if she so much as pulled my sleeve, I'd immediately drop what I was doing, take her into a room, and ask what was wrong. But not this time. I gently brushed her hand away, suppressing the hatred in my heart, and said, "Lily, Grandma and your mother love you the most. Just be a good girl and listen to them." Her eyes were wide with shock. She spoke in a pitiful, weak voice. "Auntie, can you come into the room with me for a moment? Just a little while?" I decisively shook my head. "Auntie has things to do. You just go play with your toys nicely." Rejected by me, she still wouldn't give up. "Auntie, my friends all make fun of me because of that thing on my face. They call me ugly, and they say it's going to get bigger and bigger." Her voice, though soft, was clear and very persuasive. In the past, I'd told her she could study art when she grew up and become an MC, but now, hearing it, I just felt nauseous, my whole body burning with rage. "Lily, don't you trust your grandma and your mother anymore?" I asked directly. Lily trembled, glancing at my mother and Sarah. Sarah glared, then started a noisy tirade spewing vulgarities. Lily didn't dare speak, tears welling up in her eyes as she ran into her room. My mother and Sarah didn't stop. After plotting and scheming, they concluded that my room was the most suitable place for the Bodhisattva altar. There were only 3 rooms in the house, one for my brother and Sarah, one for my mother and Lily. Which room was suitable? Even a child could figure it out, of course, it was mine. In my previous life, the altar wasn't successful, but then Sarah gave birth to a son. When my nephew turned 10, he took over my room entirely. I had no choice but to move out onto the balcony. It wasn't that I didn't want to move out of the house, but after Lily's surgery, my mother immediately took my wage card, claiming she feared I'd squander money. She only gave me 100 yuan a month for pocket money. What could 100 yuan do? When I said I wanted to rent a place outside, my mother cursed me, calling me wasteful, saying I only knew how to enjoy myself and didn't save for my brother. She claimed my brother was under immense pressure, and I needed to suffer a little more to contribute to building the family. If you hadn't interfered, Lily would have been a reincarnated Bodhisattva, receiving offerings, and our family would have gotten rich and bought a villa by now. Every time she said something like that, I remained silent because I didn't regret saving Lily and giving her a healthy life. I just never expected that Lily would be so quickly brainwashed by my mother and Sarah, forgetting everything I had done, even forgetting how she once clung to my leg, crying and begging for surgery. This time, my wage card was still in my hand. The tens of thousands I had painstakingly saved were still there, enough to rent a place. I told my mother, "I'll just tidy up my room a bit." Seeing me being so sensible, my mother happily said, "Tonight you can sleep with me and Lily, just move your bed over." I replied, "No need for such trouble, I'll move into the company dormitory." Just then, my mother made a request that sent my blood pressure soaring. She wanted me to hand over my wage card. "You're a girl living in a dorm, eating at the canteen, what do you need so much money for?" "Mom, my company doesn't have a canteen." To my surprise, she continued, "Then come home for lunch and dinner. Don't come back for breakfast, it'll be too noisy. Skipping one meal won't kill you." I desperately wanted to slap her face but held back. I picked up my luggage, intending to leave. My mother immediately grabbed my purse, trying to snatch my bank card. I wouldn't let her succeed. I instantly swung my arm, forcefully pushing her away. She shrieked, then glared at me, saying, "You wicked bitch, how dare you lay a hand on me?" My mother screamed, then dramatically flopped onto the ground, sobbing pitifully. But I was no longer the person I used to be. These tricks were useless against me now. "I'm just moving out, not cutting ties with you, Mom. Why do you need to hold on to my salary?" I forced down the burning anger in my heart, trying to remain calm. Now wasn't the time for a complete severance. I wanted to witness this family rot with my own eyes. My mother tried to stand up again, forcing a smile. "I'm just afraid you're still young, and with so much money, you might get scammed." How could she even say that? Is there a difference between being scammed by outsiders or by her? "I know you're worried about me, Mom, but don't worry, I'm not a child anymore. Besides, even you can't fool me, let alone others." My mother still wouldn't give up, chasing me all the way to the hallway, clutching my bag tightly. "Alice, is there any child in this neighborhood who doesn't give their money to their parents to hold?" Her voice was so loud it immediately attracted the attention of the neighbors. My house was in a teacher's housing complex. My mother had lived here for decades. They were all old neighbors. Seeing everyone gathering, my mother immediately started to cry, snot and tears streaming down her face. Her voice was already piercing, and now it dragged on like a rooster crowing. If this were before, I would certainly have been intimidated by her theatrics. But not now. I calmly turned to explain to the gossiping elders, "There's no room for me in my house anymore. I have no choice but to move into the company dormitory. But my mother wants to keep my wage card, and she told me to skip breakfast, only coming home for lunch and dinner. But my work hours aren't fixed. How can I be home at precise meal times? As I said this, I deliberately wiped my red eyes, sniffling, putting on a pitiful act to gain sympathy. Who doesn't know how to play that game? As soon as I finished speaking, the neighbors immediately turned to criticize my mother. Everyone said that treating one's own daughter like that was unacceptable. My mother was stunned, unable to understand how the situation had turned so quickly. In her bewildered gaze, I firmly gripped her wrist. I quietly used force to pull her hand away from my bag. It wasn't until I had left that she burst into sobbing again. Perhaps at that moment, she realized she could no longer control me. I didn't move into the company dormitory. I knew very well that place was just a small room crammed with 6 bunk beds. The narrow aisle in the middle was stifling and reeked of unpleasant odors. In my previous life, I had suffered my entire life and ultimately had no good outcome. In this life, I wanted to treat myself well. I rented a small studio apartment near my company. Though small, it was at least my own private space. I no longer had to work like a horse for the whole family, nor did I have to squeeze in with anyone else. Once settled, I began to think about my future path. Since I had returned a few years to the past, I still had a slight advantage in information. It was a pity that in my previous life, I wasn't interested in stocks or lotteries, so getting rich through investment was impossible. Suddenly, an idea flashed in my mind. I remembered something important. In my previous life, due to constant busyness, I had virtually no entertainment. Every day I went to work, came home to serve the entire family, and by the time I was done, it was late. The happiest moment of my day was lying in bed, reading a few novels. Those novels would only become famous several years later. Right now, they hadn't even appeared yet. Thinking quickly, I immediately registered an account on Jihu, recalling the plotlines of popular works from my previous life. After a week of tinkering, I grasped the process and tremblingly wrote my first short story. After submitting it, I anxiously waited to see if I could change my fate, pinning all my hopes on this. Another week passed with no news, but I didn't give up, continuing to write the second and then the third story. Now that I no longer had to serve the entire family, I found I had a lot of time to think about content while at work and write when I got home. By the third story, I felt myself becoming more and more fluent, my speed increasing, completing a story every few days. Just as I finished the third story, I received a notification from the system. I had been chosen by an editor. The happiness came so quickly that I felt light as air. After answering questions and signing the contract, my story was published. Every day, I dreamed of a brilliant future, living for myself. It felt absolutely amazing. Perhaps because I was mimicking hot works from a few years in the future, my first few stories were published continuously. Watching the number of likes in my section grow, I felt like I was dreaming, unable to hold back tears. Perhaps this was the turning point of my life. Once I overcame this, I would escape the rotten, decaying life of my previous existence. But before I could enjoy my happiness for long, my mother called, and the moment she opened her mouth, she demanded money. "Alice, you've been working for several years now, so you must have saved quite a bit, right? Every time your sister-in-law goes for her prenatal checkups, it's so inconvenient. Your brother wants to buy a car. What money do I have?" Hearing her demand money, I immediately refused. For all these years, ever since Lily was born, I've been the one taking care of everything. "You know very well how much my salary is." My mother immediately denied it. "You wretched child, you can eat nonsense, but you can't speak nonsense. Lily has proper parents. How could she possibly be raised by her aunt? They had treated me as their personal cash cow for so many years, and now they wanted to wipe away all my efforts with a single sentence." I scoffed coldly. "Mom, I genuinely don't have any money left. I just rented a place and paid the rent. I barely have enough to eat." My mother shrieked, her voice piercing. "What? You dare to rent a place? You unfilial child, you're spending your brother's money to enjoy yourself. Get back here immediately. I'll clean up the balcony for you to sleep on." And that apparently was my good mother. My patience had long since flown out the window. In my previous life, just to receive a shred of her meager affection, I had obediently followed all her arrangements, willingly becoming the family's blood bag. What did I get in return? I laughed at myself bitterly. I'm spending my own money. Why would it be my brother's? "I don't care. Hurry up and move your things back home. To prevent you from squandering money, I'll keep your wage card." "Dream on." I immediately hung up. To my surprise, my mother went straight to my company and caused a huge scene. And it was another incident that happened shortly after that made me even more determined to quit my job. I didn't have many qualifications. I only finished 9 years of compulsory education before my mother forced me to work as a factory laborer. In truth, my academic performance was very good. I was perfectly capable of getting into high school. It was just a pity that my family's circumstances were so dire that I forever lost the opportunity to continue my education. There was once a time when my essay was chosen as a model and broadcast throughout the entire school. That was also an important reason why I could quickly immerse myself in writing now, possessing both talent and passion. Currently, my job was merely standing on the assembly line in a factory. I struggled to earn a few thousand yuan each month, and my mother scrutinized every penny. She wished she could turn me into multiple daughters to exploit to her heart's content. But now, her schemes were about to crumble. When my team leader called me to the finance department, I had a vague premonition that something bad was happening. Sure enough, as soon as I arrived and saw my mother, disheveled, lying on the floor, I felt a sense of relief. The accountant looked at me with a hint of pity. "Alice Zhao, your mother is insisting on transferring your wage card to her." My mother, still lying triumphantly on the floor, declared, "If you don't transfer it, I'll lie here every day." I said coldly, "Then you can lie there. Ms. Ho, please call security to escort her out." Hearing this, my mother immediately jumped up like a roaring lion. "You wretched creature, how dare you treat your mother like this? Aren't you afraid of divine retribution? Today, no matter what you say, you will transfer that wage card into my name." I turned to the finance department. "Ms. Ho, I've already submitted my resignation to HR. I won't be coming in tomorrow." Ms. Ho sighed in relief. After all, the less one got involved with someone like my mother, the better. "Well, I wish you a bright future." My mother wouldn't let go, grabbing my arm, yelling angrily, "You wasteful wretch, why are you quitting your job? If you don't work anymore, who will help the family with the factory work?" I forcefully shook her hand off and said coldly, "Didn't you and Sarah set up an altar?" At the mention of the altar, my mother's face immediately changed. Lately, I had been engrossed in writing and earning money, paying no attention to them. I didn't know how they had set up that altar, if their business was doing well, or if they were collecting much incense money. But looking at my mother's face, it seemed nothing was going smoothly. My mother gritted her teeth for a long time before managing to blurt out a sentence. "But you can't be idle either. You're grown up, you have to work and earn money to help your brother." "Why should I?" I sneered, not answering. She continued, "Your sister-in-law is pregnant with a son, my only grandson. If anything happens, you'll be held responsible." HMPH, if we're talking about being held responsible, aren't all of you indebted to me for a life? I pulled my hand back and said coldly, "Mom, from now on, I no longer have a job. No matter what happens to you, don't look for me, so I don't have to come home and freeload." My mother's eyes and mouth were wide open. It took her a long time to utter a single sentence. "How could I have given birth to such an unfilial child like you?" From the moment I stopped expecting love from my callous father, their words or actions no longer affected my mood. My heart had long since grown cold like a deep well. Another important reason for my firm decision to quit my job was that my writing had started to achieve results. After quitting, I devoted myself to writing in my rented apartment. I even bought a proper laptop for writing. Now, I was no longer just mimicking old stories, but had begun to create works with my personal stamp. My writing speed increased. I could complete a story in just 2 days. The more I wrote, the greater my chances of standing out. Very quickly, I had a story that garnered attention. When I received my first month's royalties, I almost couldn't believe my eyes. 50,000 yuan, almost my total income for the entire previous year. Looking at the number in the system, tears streamed down my face again. I had truly managed to break free from the swamp of my original family. I could finally give that toxic family the middle finger with dignity. The feeling of not depending on anyone, of controlling my own life, was truly amazing. Just as I was immersed in my joy, my niece Lily called. "Auntie, can you please save me?" Why should I save her? In my previous life, she was the one who unhooked my safety harness, called me an idiot, and gloated as I fell. "What's wrong, Lily? Is something the matter?" I asked, suppressing my emotions. She cried and spoke, "I don't want to sit in the altar room all day anymore. I want to go to school." "You're not going to school?" I asked, surprised. She cried, unable to form words. "No. Grandma and my mom told the school I was sick and made me sit and meditate in the altar room all day. My whole body aches." "Auntie, the incense in the altar room is too strong. I'm suffocating. Can you save me?" The suffocating incense wasn't the big issue. The real problem was the red scar on her forehead. If not operated on in time, it could quickly turn into cancer. "I'm sorry, I don't have a job right now, and the money I have is almost gone." Lily then said, "If you don't have money, you can just come back home. I can meditate in the altar room for you. You won't go hungry sitting there, nor will you wander the streets. Only I would be willing to give such a good job to you." I laughed coldly in my heart. This child had been cunning since she was little. "If it's so good, then you can just enjoy it yourself." I hung up and called an old close friend, and it was from that phone call that I learned about the current situation at home. My mother had indeed set up an altar room, and Lily had indeed dropped out of school. But very few people came to worship. At first, a few elderly folks came to watch for fun, but my niece didn't know what to do, so gradually, no one came anymore. After hearing all this, I wanted to laugh. Did they really think that just by having a child sit there, people would foolishly hand over money? Now my niece sat in the altar room all day, waiting for people to come and pray for blessings, while my mother went around the neighborhood trying to entice people. But no one was foolish. She even reached out to other neighborhoods, even fabricating stories that worshiping here would cure any illness, all pure deception. Who would believe that? After focusing on writing, I became acquainted with a few like-minded friends. We often chatted in our group, sharing amusing stories. This made me less lonely, and I gradually overcame my inferiority complex and shyness. It turned out I could have good friends who didn't look down on me and always encouraged me. Thanks to writing, in just a few short months, I earned more money than I had in the previous 10 years combined. It seemed I had found the meaning of this rebirth, to bid farewell to my old self and start a new life. Just as I had almost forgotten about my mother and family, a phone call forced me to confront them once again. The caller was the police. At first, I thought it was a scam, but then what they said made me believe them. My niece, Lily, seemed to have caused an incident, even resulting in a death. For the past few days, my mother had been going around all the surrounding neighborhoods, luring people in. Thanks to her talent for lying, she truly managed to deceive quite a few people, mostly elderly individuals, all suffering from age-related ailments. She made Lily pray for blessings for them. This blessing involved making them drink holy water, which was actually just water mixed with burnt talismans. These talismans, I heard, my sister-in-law ordered online, costing only 9.9 yuan for 1,000 sheets with free shipping. Drinking that stuff had no effect, but it certainly wasn't deadly. However, I never expected my mother to lose all humanity for money. There was an elderly woman whose grandson had kidney failure and had to undergo painful dialysis every week. My mother tricked the grandmother and grandson into coming, claiming that just drinking the holy water would cure the illness, no injections or dialysis needed. As a result, the child's condition worsened and he passed away. My mother panicked, blaming everything on Sarah, saying that because Sarah was pregnant, she would definitely be safe. But Sarah wasn't foolish. She said, "Why would I, being pregnant, do such things?" In the end, my mother was arrested. My niece Lily was so scared she wet her pants on the spot. My brother, who was away on a business trip, rushed back after hearing the news but got into a car accident on the way. The house was now in complete chaos. The police called me, asking me to come back and handle the situation. I returned with the attitude of watching a drama unfold. Because Lily was young and had only followed my mother's instructions, she wasn't arrested. As soon as she saw me, she rushed to hug my leg and cried. I thought she was heartbroken by the family's misfortune, but it turned out she wasn't. "Auntie, the red scar on my face is getting bigger again. It's so ugly. Auntie, please take me for surgery." Foolish girl. "Your mother said that was a sign of prosperity, didn't she? How dare I take you to the hospital?" I immediately refused. In my previous life, because of my soft heart, she called me an idiot and indirectly caused my death. A flicker of resentment appeared in her eyes. "It's right that you hate your mother, then. Resent the right person. Don't find the wrong person to bear the blame." My mother was now facing an enormous compensation payment, but my brother and Sarah adamantly refused to pay. My mother had no money, and the other party refused to sign a waiver, so my mother was certain to be convicted. My brother, fresh out of the hospital, immediately came with Sarah to find me and demand money. I don't know how they got my address. I flatly refused. "Are you kidding? If I give them money, my head must be made of stone." Sarah forced a smile and said, "Look, I'm about to give birth. How about you come back home and live with us?" You can take care of me during my confinement, and we'll cover your food and lodging. Did they really think I was that naive? I wouldn't just take care of their whole family, I'd probably have to dig into my own pockets for formula and diapers for their child too. Was I that stupid? Of course, I had to refuse this kind of thing vehemently. My brother started in with his moralizing tone. Our family raised you this big. If you don't pay the compensation this time, you're truly unfilial. So what if I'm unfilial? Yes, I am unfilial. What about it? Do you want to hit me? If you dare lay a hand on me, I'll sue you. My brother was a coward. He only knew how to bully family members. As soon as I stood firm, he immediately backed down. Then watch Mom go to jail. Let's see if you'll still have the face to look at the Zhao family ancestors later. I just gave him a glance and turned to walk away. But my phone never stopped ringing. Countless relatives called, from aunts and uncles to distant acquaintances. All of them wanted to persuade me to help my mother. The most frequent thing they said was, if your mother goes to jail, it will affect your nephew's civil service exams. This nephew was the fetus in my sister-in-law's womb, not yet born. But what did that have to do with me? Every time someone called, I immediately blocked their number. After several days of chaos, it finally settled down. I knew it was all my brother's doing. He wanted to use those relatives to moralize and hypocritically pressure me into taking out money to save our mother. Before, I probably couldn't have withstood such pressure. If Lily had cried a few times in front of me, I would have softened and pulled out all my money to pay the compensation. But not anymore. Escaping those bloodsuckers felt truly liberating. The police called me again, saying my mother in detention was refusing to eat or drink, hoping I could persuade her. I agreed. The moment my mother saw me, she collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face, grabbing my clothes. Alice, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me? If this were before, I surely would have knelt too, sobbing and begging my mother for forgiveness in return. But now I pulled my arm away from her, took 2 steps back, and said coldly, Mom, I understand you favor my brother, but now that there's trouble, he's hiding away. That's unacceptable. She remained on her knees, crying, but he's your brother, and your sister-in-law is pregnant, they'll need a lot of money later. So, am I supposed to be this family's living bank forever? For years, you've made me give them money. Where am I supposed to get money for compensation now? My mother calmly replied, if you don't have money, go sell yourself. There are so many technicians out there, you can earn a lot doing that. The police officer next to her couldn't help but scold her, telling your daughter to engage in illegal work is a crime. I secretly pinched my arm hard, the pain bringing tears to my eyes. I burst into tears and said, that's the kind of mother I have. She gave my brother everything, and now that there's trouble, he hides his head and shrinks away. My mother looked at me pleadingly, but I pretended not to see her, wiped my tears, and took another step back. Mom, just a few days ago, my brother was planning to buy a new car. If he had no money, was he going to buy it with faith? Why is he claiming to have no money now? Amidst my mother's wails and shouts, I walked away decisively. I only went to see her to do 2 things. First, to let the police know how much my mother favored her son, to the point of being willing to make her daughter engage in illegal work for him. Second, to prove that my brother had money and that my mother had handed everything over to him. As for me, I had nothing. I was completely clean. Whether it affected my brother or not, I didn't care. I heard that the court attempted mediation several times afterward, but my brother adamantly refused to pay compensation, so they couldn't get a waiver from the victim's side. As a result, my mother was sentenced to 2 years in prison. For me, this outcome was more than good enough. At least for the next 2 years, she wouldn't be able to bother me. I thought that without my mother to harass me, I would live in peace, but I never expected my brother's family to have no intention of letting me go either. Sarah called me, saying, before, it was Mom causing trouble that caused a rift between us sisters. Now that Mom's in jail, I think the whole family should reconnect. I didn't believe her for a second. I went to my brother's house with the attitude of watching a play, subtly hiding a micro camera in a hidden corner of the living room. As soon as Lily saw me, she rushed over and hugged me tightly. Auntie, you're here, I missed you so much. She probably missed me dying sooner, I thought. I just gave a faint smile and pushed her away. The red scar on her face had grown larger again. It was now the size of a chicken egg, but my brother and sister-in-law didn't seem to care. During dinner, Sarah finally revealed her true intentions. She was about to give birth and had initially planned for my mother to care for her during confinement and look after the baby. Now that my mother was in jail, Sarah couldn't manage and set her sights on me. Lily also held my hand, acting spoiled. Auntie, I missed you so much. Sleep with me tonight, okay? I'll tell you stories. I don't care to hear your stories, I thought. I politely refused. Sarah seemed to lose her patience. Alice, are you really going to abandon your whole family? She started to well up with tears, no longer carrying her arrogant demeanor. Your brother is old now, the company plans to fire him. If he takes care of me during confinement, he's sure to lose his job. I also put on a difficult expression. I just got a new job recently, it's easy and the pay is good. I can't miss such a good opportunity. Sarah continued to cry. Then who will take care of me? My own mother passed away early, and my mother-in-law is in jail. My fate is truly miserable. My gaze shifted to Lily. Isn't Lily out of school? And haven't you all abandoned that altar room? Isn't that good then? Sarah's eyes brightened slightly but immediately fell again, her voice sighing. But I'm afraid your brother's salary won't be enough to support me and my 2 children. Before, you were the one who paid for Lily's milk and diapers. I laughed and said, once I start working again, those things won't be a problem. My mouth said it firmly, but in my heart I scoffed. What, you want to turn me into a golden goose again? How shameless. My niece Lily was so scared she burst into tears, shouting, I want to go to school. I've been out of school for so long. If I stay home like this forever, people will know I'm being held captive. Sarah immediately showed her true colors, slapping Lily hard across the face. You wretched child. If you don't behave and take care of me and your sibling, I'll tear you to shreds. Lily immediately burst into wails, then, as if going mad, she lunged forward, pushing Sarah to the ground. Sarah screamed in pain as she fell heavily, fresh red blood flowing from her. The sight was terrifying. My brother was utterly terrified. He rushed over, grabbed a chair, and violently smashed it onto Lily's head. The girl collapsed to the floor, her face covered in blood. I had lived 2 lives, and yet this scene still made me tremble, my heart racing, my hands and feet fumbling. My brother, holding Sarah, shouted, telling me to help carry her to the car. The whole family was in utter chaos. Sarah was already heavy, and my brother, though 1.75 meters tall, never exercised. He was plump and had no strength at all, so I had to help him carry her to the car. Sarah was unconscious, lying there like a pale white pig. We struggled immensely to get her into the car. Even though my mother had previously offended the entire building over the altar room incident, 2 kind-hearted aunties came to help. After much effort, we finally got Sarah into the car. My brother immediately drove off. He didn't stop even when I called. In truth, I had no intention of stopping him. The 2 aunties pulled me aside and asked what happened. I feigned tears, recounting the entire story, and then pretended to shriek, "Oh my God, Lily is still unconscious at home." Hearing this, the 2 women quickly returned with me. I called 120 in front of them to create evidence. But because of the prolonged delay, what would happen to Lily remained unknown. The ambulance arrived, and I followed Lily to the hospital. I guessed those 2 elderly women had already spread this shocking news throughout the apartment complex. While waiting for the ambulance, seeing that they still didn't believe my brother had hit his daughter, I played the video I'd recorded and showed it to them. With irrefutable evidence, my brother couldn't deny it. When the doctor took Lily into the emergency room, I called my brother to pay the fees. Just then, the doctor from Sarah's side came out with news. The baby couldn't be saved. It was a fully formed baby boy. My brother was furious, utterly enraged. He had yearned for a son for so many years, and now the fetus was lost. The doctor then delivered even more horrifying news. Sarah had severe hemorrhage and needed a hysterectomy. My brother looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, almost collapsing. His hands trembling, he signed the papers, agreeing to his wife's surgery. Afterward, the doctor from Lily's room came out, requesting a signature for surgery and payment of hospital fees. This time, my brother adamantly refused to sign. That wretched child can die for all I care. I'm discontinuing treatment. I went to visit Lily. Miraculously, she was awake. Auntie, why didn't you save me? I clearly grew up healthy and even passed my high school exams. Why did everything change? It seemed she had remembered her past life. I smiled and whispered into her ear, because the auntie who loved you so much back then was tricked by you into bungee jumping and died. The girl's eyes widened, her entire body trembled, and very quickly afterward, she stopped breathing. I saw a single tear fall from the corner of her eye, but so what? My brother was arrested. As soon as Sarah was wheeled out of the operating room, the police immediately took him away. The video recording the violence had been uploaded by those aunties to Chinese TikTok, Douyin, and spread rapidly, reaching the top of the search trends. Netizens competed to report it to the police. Even though the person hit was his own daughter, he had beaten her to death. The consequences were extremely severe. Perhaps for the rest of his life, he would have to repent in prison. Sarah's hospital bills completely wiped out my brother's several years of savings. After being discharged from the hospital, she couldn't find a stable job, only able to do odd jobs to survive, living a truly miserable life. As for me, I had long since left that heartbreaking city, moving to a small town in the south. 2 years later, I received a call from the police, asking me to return to handle my mother's funeral arrangements. It turned out she had completed her prison sentence and returned home to find that Sarah had found another man. Furious, she went berserk and fought with them. Her body was already weak after 2 years in prison. She was beaten to death by Sarah and that man. Both were immediately arrested. Since I was the only remaining relative, I had to take care of the funeral. Afterward, I also inherited my mother's assets. The house my brother and Sarah were living in was originally allocated to my mother when she was working. Her name was still on the deed. Coincidentally, less than a month after I received the inheritance, that housing complex was designated for demolition. I received a very large compensation. With that money, I returned to my own home, living in peace. The love, hatred, and grievances of my previous life had come to an end here. From now on, my life could only get better and better.